Hello, my name is Tidwell, and today I will go over my project concerning the West Fertilizer Company explosion. Okay, some background information on West Fertilizer Company. They were constructed in 1961 in West Texas, and this company was responsible for storing certain chemicals and additives that go into fertilizer. They didn't typically make their own fertilizer, however, they would mix certain chemicals to make additives for fertilizer for other big companies that made fertilizer. The building was constructed out of mostly wood and other combustible materials, and fertilizer grade ammonium nitrate was their biggest chemical they would store there. They'd have it all the time. They'd always have to have fertilizer grade ammonium nitrate. And fertilizer grade ammonium nitrate was stored in these big plywood bins. They would have this system of conveyor belts and bucket elevators, and the bucket elevators would go into a system of PVC pipes, and the fertilizer grade ammonium nitrate would travel down these PVC pipes into these big bins, and they would be stored there. Okay, now that we've talked about fertilizer grade ammonium nitrate, we should talk about its characteristics. It's a strong oxidizer. Its appearance can be white, gray, or brown, and it's a solid. It can cause skin irritation, eye irritation, and respiratory tract infection. Ammonium nitrate, when contaminated with oil, charcoal, or other organic materials, should be considered an explosive, capable of detonation by combustion or by explosion of other adjacent combustible materials. Okay. Now we get to the question of what happened to West Fertilizer Company. April 17th, 2013, sometime around 7:30 p.m., a fire started in the fertilizer building of the West Fertilizer Company. The fire spread quickly because of numerous combustible materials present in the construction of the building. In fact, the materials that were present in the building did not only make the fire worse, it made it spread faster. A passing police officer noticed the fire when he was doing his rounds in town and notified dispatch immediately to the area. Soon the West Fertilizer Fire Department, the West Fertilizer Volunteer Fire Department, arrived on the scene and started to plan to put out the fire. Around 7:50 p.m., the fire had spread to the room where the fertilizer grade ammonium nitrate was stored. And with all the smoldering ash and embers that were falling down onto the ammonium nitrate in these big bins, there would be a layer of ash and soot and embers on top of the ammonium nitrate. And there was constantly just oxygen flowing into the room because there were so many openings from doors burning off, and there was fresh oxygen being introduced. And we know a thing about oxygen and fire. They get along really well. When the oxygen came in, it made the fire even hotter. And one thing we know about ammonium nitrate is when it gets extremely hot, it has the capability to explode. And it is not pretty at all. Okay. Here's a picture of the West Fertilizer Company before the explosion occurred. As you can see, this is the big fertilizer building right here. This is where the fire started, right here. And right over here is West Texas's school. This is where a lot of high school kids went. This right here is a residential area right here. This is an apartment complex. And this over here right here is a nursing home. These are all within a mile or 2 miles of the West Fertilizer Company. And that's not going to be good for the community, as you'll see here in a second. This is a picture after the explosion occurred. As you can see right here where the building was, there's a huge, massive crater right here. And there's also damage to the roof of the school right here, which is not good. This little residential apartment complex right here was completely flattened. It is gone. And as you can see, there's multiple layers of debris and shrapnel all over the road. It was just an awful explosion. It sounded like a bomb going off. I watched the video of it. Okay. Why was the explosion so catastrophic to the community? The explosion damaged so much of the surrounding community and damaged a portion of the nearby school. The reason they were allowed to be so close to West Fertilizer Company is because there were no proper zoning ordinances or restrictions in the area of West Texas. This meant that the area of West Texas, the community, could build around West Fertilizer Company with no restricting radius around it. They could build freely wherever they wanted to. And they did. They built a school, a nursing home, apartment complexes, houses, all in that area where the company was. And it resulted in catastrophic consequences. Okay. What are the outcomes of this catastrophe? 15 total fatalities, 12 of them being emergency responders, sadly, and 3 of them being civilians, unfortunately. Hundreds of injured civilians, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of damage. OSHA was required to update their explosives and blasting agents, process safety management standards. And the EPA was also required to update their risk management program and emergency planning and the Community Right to Know Act. Thank you so much. This concludes my presentation on the West Fertilizer Company explosion.